What's up, Internet? You're tuned in to episode 66 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flipscreen Games' weekly gaming podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Should I correct myself and say that it's the show all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the OLED Steam Deck?
Yes, I guess so. I mean, we will be talking a little bit about the LCD model and the comparisons, but yeah, both of us picked up our or got our OLED Steam Decks delivered this week,
We
which is
got it, baby.
exciting.
We did it. We did it, everybody. Look at this. Look at this
Quick, let's
beautiful thing.
see what Pete's been playing.
Oh,
Persona.
well, this is just for today. Like it's not, like I booted up a bunch of stuff to test it out. So I wasn't
hmm
I, I wasn't actively playing Persona. I opened it up and ran around Shibuya. Let's not get too carried away. But
Okay, I thought
you
you were
know,
going to be getting back into the game club, and we were going to be able
uh
to continue with that, but that's not going to happen, is
maybe
it?
next year. Maybe next year.
Yeah,
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 I tried Roller Drome, I got Baldur's Gate 3 and Backpack Hero.
My Baldur's Gate 3 install is somehow completely screwed
More.
up, and I don't know why.
I saw you.
It won't it gets to, like, 100%, I can hear, like, the sound going that, like, the menu's gonna load, and then it doesn't do the menu, it just completely crashes, so I
Interesting.
think I'm gonna have to, like, delete it and reinstall it,
Yeah.
but it's like a 150 gigabyte game,
That
and
sucks.
I know it's gonna take hours to
Downloads
download,
are
so
faster on the OLED Steam
downloads
Deck.
are faster,
Can
but not
confirm
on
they
my
are way, way faster, man. Like, oh my god, the night that I opened it, I started downloading Baldur's Gate through thinking it was like, oh, this is gonna take like all night, right? Because it's huge. And the first time I
Mhm.
downloaded it, it took like all night, and it was done in like an hour. I was like, oh my god, wow.
I don't ever download big games over Wi-Fi, so I plug my dock directly into the router with Ethernet, and so, I never have that problem. It was always as fast as it ever could be, but, even
That's
then on my
smart.
crappy connection, it's ridiculous.
I should probably do
Yeah,
that,
like,
huh?
just take your dock over to
I,
your router
I take
because,
advantage
like
of the fact that my Wi-Fi is sick. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like it's good
yeah.
enough.
Mine sucks. How did you not bring anything over with you then? So there was a couple of ways like you can move things over, and I moved all of my games to the SD card, all the Steam games, and then I pulled it over. But there's like a few ways I've seen people doing it. Right, some people are taking the back of their old Steam Deck off, taking the SSD out, putting it in their new one. I'm obviously not going to do that.
Fuck out of here with that. Yeah, no, come on.
Um,
I just re-downloaded the games that I'm actually playing and didn't re-download the ones that I'm not. And the thing that sucks is I'm gonna have to go through the song and dance of reinstalling all my emulators and everything. But I have all the saves and everything over there, so I'm hoping I never set up the cloud sync stuff.
Okay. Well,
So
there's a couple of things there, right? So EmuDeck has a new tool now. If you go to EmuDeck's website, they've got a like a transfer tool that
oh
allows you to
cool.
transfer all your games, your BIOS, and your like saves from one deck to another.
Beautiful.
But I recommend this tool called Sync Thing. You can download it on the Discover store, and if you go to syncthing.net, there's a link in our show notes, Pete. Then you can basically boot this up on one of your Steam Decks and then boot it up on the other Steam Deck, and you can get it to copy over your entire home
Oh
directory
shit.
over your Wi-Fi, and then
Really?
everything gets transferred from one Steam Deck to
And
another,
that'll
and all
work.
of your settings will bring over, all of
No
your
way.
emulators will come over. Yeah, everything
Oh,
comes over
beautiful.
with
Okay, great. You saved me an evening. I was gonna
it.
blow my whole night tomorrow setting this thing all back up. That's great. I love
So yeah,
that.
I highly recommend that. Give Sync Thing a go if you want to. And it's quite cool. Like it can keep things in sync between multiple devices. So if you ever do get to a point where you're like, well, I'm going to keep two Steam Decks around and I want to like use it for testing or whatever, then you can use Sync Thing to
So
keep both of them
here's the
in the same
conundrum I'm
state.
at, Steve. I'm wondering, like, do I sell my deck or do I keep it now and do weird tests on it?
I know it's a tough one.
Okay.
Mine's gone.
You already got rid of yours. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it because it's like you know.
I have no reason. I don't think there's any reason to keep it. To be honest, I think the similarities between the devices are so they're so similar, right? It's really
Yeah,
just
but what
the
I could do,
screen that's the striking difference.
right? And here's what I'm thinking though, right? And it's like maybe this is silly, but we're silly boys. So, I'm just gonna throw it out there, right? Who's to say? I haven't had a chance to do it yet. I apologize. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I got boxes and shelves behind me. My basement is still a work in progress, but I bought that CRT because I want to set up my little retro gaming station with the Steam Deck as the brain. And I'm sitting and wondering, maybe I just leave that Steam Deck plugged in, and when I want to use the TV, it's rocking and rolling, and I have the cloud sync so that if I want to pick it up on my main deck now, the OLED,
Mhm.
it's right there. So who's to say? Maybe we go that route, Steve.
It's worth a go. I mean, you could also just give it to your wife if
My
she
wife
wants a
has one.
Steam
I
Deck.
bought her one
Oh,
already.
okay, yeah,
You
you
know
did,
that.
yeah. I remember,
We're a
yeah.
3
Yeah.
Steam Deck household over here, Steve.
See, I offered my Steam Deck to my partner, but they declined. They were just like, "No, I wanna play with a keyboard and mouse, I'm sorry."
That's crazy to me. They're not gonna play Euro Truck Simulator on this thing? Come on.
No, they play all sorts of games on a keyboard and mouse, so,
Fair enough.
um, not a controller gamer at all.
That's the other thing, right? I'm like, at some point, I'm gonna have a friend that I could pawn this thing off on, right? I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm gonna throw the line out, and if somebody buys it high at the price I wanna sell it at, I'll sell it, and if I gotta, like, get talked down to a lower price, I'm gonna be like, "Screw it, I'll just hold on to it and play with it."
Yeah, like, I sold mine as soon as possible because 'cause I've seen the market just be flooded
And
with
you
them
sold it
now
to
that
some
people have had their
Yeah,
deliveries.
dude, I had the same exact like, the day that we talked about it, I looked on Facebook Marketplace, and there's, like, 30 of them. I was like, "Oh, shoot, okay."
Yeah, it is flooded there. So if you want a Steam Deck for Christmas, right, before we get into the OLED impressions,
Great time
and
to buy.
you're on a budget and, like, you just want or you want a second Steam Deck or you wanna get one for a friend or family member, like, now is the perfect time to pick them up on the used market because they're just phenomenal value. It it's ostensibly the same device as the OLED model with the changes that we'll go over, and obviously, I'm sure everyone already knows them. But it's still a fantastic device, like,
Yeah,
getting the OLED
absolutely.
model really cemented for me how good that original Steam Deck was.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, I think we don't have to bury the lead here. I think it's easy to say that this one is definitively a better unit in every imaginable way.
Yeah, it is, it really is.
That said, yeah, because it's like I didn't have problems with the base unit, like, by and large, right? But it's like you pick this one up and you're like, "Damn, wow, they really tried to iterate on every idea that exists on the first one on some level, right? Like,
So
there's little adjustments.
setting aside the limited edition stuff, because I wanna talk about that separately.
Sure.
Um, what was the first thing you noticed when you got it? For me, it was the weight. Like, I picked it up, and I was not expecting a 30-gram difference to be that much, but for me, it really felt noticeable.
So here's the thing. I'm gonna be 100% with you. When I first did it, I did not notice. It was very, very much the exact same experience I had with the Nintendo Switch, where the first time I held the Steam Deck, I was like, I'm struck by how nice this feels in the hands. It's not too
Mhm.
heavy. It's great. And then I picked up my Switch and I'm like, oh my God, that thing is a brick. Like, this
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
a third of the weight of this thing. Wow. Um, yeah, so like I've been using my OLED for, what, couple hours so far. Like, I haven't had as much time to play with it as I wanted to because in the United States it's Thanksgiving this weekend. Happy Thanksgiving if you're an American listener. Hope you had a good holiday. Uh, so, I was so focused on, like, wow, the screen is amazing. Like, what games do I want to try? Thinking about the performance. I'm not even. I was thinking about how nice it felt in my hands, like the texture of it and everything like
Mhm.
that. But yeah, I didn't even really think about the weight. But as soon as you and I sat down here, I have my LCD original Steam Deck right here, and I picked it up and I was like, oh my God, this thing is so heavy comparatively.
I know, yeah.
It's
I know,
nuts.
it's crazy,
And again,
absolutely crazy.
we just said, right? This is I would not dissuade anyone from buying this unit. Um, ergonomically, it's very comfortable. It doesn't feel heavy to me for like long stretches of gameplay. But then when you pick up the exact same footprint device and it feels like it's half the weight, even though it's not, it's like, damn, like, doing it one hand like this and swinging it around, so much. You can really feel it when you're holding it in one hand. Doing a little side by side here, it's like, oof, yeah, like it's a striking difference for sure.
I feel like it's the kind of thing that you will forget about though, and it's like you do take it for granted. Um, I I I really noticed it though as soon as I picked it up. I was like, "Wow, okay." But I'd been playing mine for hours every single day prior to the OLED model, right? And so that really struck me, and and think then it's the screen, right? You turn it on, and it's on that loading screen, and it's just black across the
It's
board, and
so
you see that start up
beautiful.
for the first time.
It's hard to I don't know. If you're not like a screen nerd, then you're not a screen nerd, but it's like if you are a person who cares about that type of thing, OLED is OLED is one of those technologies that it's like it really lives up to the hype. You know, it's like an OLED screen is always better than a non-OLED screen, right? Without fail. And it's yeah, it's just night and day, man. Like I booted up Backpack Hero first because I'm like, this is the game I was playing literally
And
with
that's got pure black backgrounds, right?
yeah, right? And I was like, "Oh my god, man." Yeah, like, not having the backlight on and playing it in, like, a pitch black room with the lights off, it's like, oof. Man, like, it's just you don't get that same, it's like, okay, we're at the loading screen and there's that it's like gray, right?
It's
It's
like
like it's
gray. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right? And it's like we
Which
all
is
know
fine, right? It's okay.
literally
It works
it's
fine.
literally fine, right? It is not a we talked about it with Max, right, a week or 2 ago, whatever it was. It's a quality of life thing, it's a luxury upgrade, it's not a thing that is gonna make or break your experience, but I do think that if you're an enthusiast and you care about that kind of thing, it's the same argument I made with the OLED Switch, where it's like, yeah, like, did it make Metroid Dread a better video game? No, but it did make me super excited to engage with it in that form factor because it's like, oh, it's so beautiful and
I
it's
played that
so
entire game on my TV, and I did not once, like,
yeah,
play it on
and
handheld.
it's like that's cool, that's totally cool, right? And it's different strokes, but, I
Yeah, yeah.
think it's one of those things where if you have the option for the upgrade, if you have the budget, you wanna go for the OLED, man. You do. You just do. It's beautiful. It's so pleasing to look at, and it does shine a new light on certain games. Certain games really shine, on an OLED screen if they do like, again, like games like Dread, like Backpack Hero, that have those darker environments, and that are a lot of the palette is black or muted, right? You just get so much more depth of contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been playing American Arcadia, which we spoke about on the Flip Screen Games podcast this week, and that has a lot of dark environments. And you can definitely tell. And but even just the color, right? The color reproduction is so much better than the original panel. Has been a lot of changes in SteamOS 3.5, which hit stable this week. And if you're not aware that it hit stable, go check. You can go to your display settings now, and there's a slider to go from sRGB up to boosted mode. And previously, the Steam Deck screen didn't emulate sRGB; it wasn't in that color space. And they did a lot of work in preparation for the Steam Deck OLED to support sRGB. And so you get the much better color reproduction on the original deck now. But the OLED model really definitely does take it kind of to the next level. I think for me, I had a lot of issues with the OLED, the LCD display that Valve picked, and I think my biggest issue with it was the fact that every single Steam Deck I've seen in person has had light bleeding issues on that LCD panel, where it's like issues like there's like a ring or a part of the screen that's a little bit brighter than other parts of the screen. You don't get anything like that with the OLED model. It's just
No, it's
completely
really clean.
like flat across the board. It's really consistent.
Yeah, I
Um,
I feel like for me, it's usually like the bloom kind of happens in that
you
like
have it
that
in the
bottom,
bottom. Mine was in the top left. I had like a
and
little
it's
section in
not
the top
it's not
left.
bad. It's really like you only really notice it when it's super dark, right? Like if it is a
But
black
when you do notice it, you can't stop looking
yeah,
at
you're
it.
like,
At
"What the
least
fuck's
I
up with
couldn't.
that?" Yeah, and it's
It
like
would annoy me.
mine is I think the placement of mine is very beneficial because where it is, it's in that bottom, like, right screen, so it's like
Yeah.
most video games is, like, that's where the loading will pop up, so it's like, "Oh, that's the only part where there's light on the screen anyway, it looks kinda normal," like, I could kinda, like, trick myself into being like, "This is natural looking enough," right? But yeah, totally. Like it you just don't have any of those issues on this guy. And I'll tell you what, we talked about the etched glass versus the glossy glass a lot, right? Like in our previous conversations
Well,
around
I've
like,
seen a lot of people talk about this, and I specifically wanted to talk to you about it because I know you picked up the limited edition model,
yeah,
and I've got the glossy one. I've only ever had the glossy one, and I'm curious what you think because I've seen some people say that the way it diffuses light, the OLED, like the effect
yeah.
that the OLED gives you, kind of isn't as intense as it could be. Is that something you found at all?
I mean, I can't speak to like that aspect of it, right? Because obviously, like, I only know what this screen looks like. So, like, it's hard
Yeah.
for me to say, like, oh, it would be different if it didn't have this thing that I've only experienced in the context of this screen. Um, but I actually I like it. I think, because what I noticed is, like my house, right? Like you can probably even see as I'm trying to like aim this and show it to you. I have overhead lighting, right? In my home. I have the recessed lighting. So, in those moments, like if I'm playing in my living room and those lights are on, I do get some interference sometimes from overhead lighting on the screen, and I got to pick where I'm sitting a little bit, or I got to angle myself, and I've noticed that it does kind of, I think, make that feel more natural, right? So it's not like I got this hot light hitting my screen and bouncing off of it. It's like, it just kind of it blends a little bit better, and I think that definitely feels natural. And I do find that, at least so far, right? Because again, I've only been playing it for a little bit versus the LCD, which I've been using for, over a year now. I find that it doesn't seem to, take fingerprints as much. Like, I'm kind of a oily guy. My hands get a little sweaty, and I am often like, I got a chamois in the bag, right? So that I can wipe the screen down and make sure that I'm not letting it get gunky or
Oh,
or
that's
like
so strange. I've never had that issue on any of my
happens to me
screens, really.
all the
Yeah.
time. And it's like not a problem on phone screens, weirdly enough, usually, because I think like they have that kind of slickness to them, you know?
They actually put a coating on most, phone screens. It's called oleophobic,
There you go.
and so it, like, gets rid of oil,
So
from your
like
fingers. I would have assumed that Valve put it on their screen as well, but I guess they
like
didn't.
maybe they did, but I'm noticing, right? Like if you just look at this one, right? Like I don't know if you'll be able to make them out, but like I can see that it's got prints all around the edges just from like
Yeah.
where my hands are naturally sitting. Whereas this one, I was just playing it for whatever, like an hour, 2 hours before we sat down to record. And I didn't wipe the screen before we sat down. And I literally used the touch screen to navigate the store. And I don't have a bunch of fingerprints on the screen. So, like, you know, I haven't used it enough to report back if like this is definitively uh the case, but anecdotally that seems to be the case, right? So, I think it definitely seems to have a few advantages at the very least. I guess your mileage may vary on whether or not you think that those trade-offs are worth it for, the amount of, like you said, the amount of like light that is getting diminished by it and how is that impacting you. To me, this screen looks beautiful, and I'm not sitting here being like, but it could be 2%
Could be a
brighter.
little bit better, yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
think I
that's
think it's a lot of it is personal preference, right? I've always liked glossy screens, over matte screens personally. But I know you can also get those etched glass screen protectors that I think a bunch of people got on the previous
yeah.
version of the Steam Deck, and you just put those on and it kind of replicates the etched screen. So, if people want to experience it, they could do that without having to buy another Steam Deck, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Um, some other changes on the screen, obviously, it's larger, 90 hertz HDR, and it's got a higher polling rate for touch. The the touch for me, I've seen some people say that it wasn't noticeable for them. It was instantly noticeable for me. I can
Yes.
actually type on the keyboard now. It was
Agreed.
terrible before. It's no longer terrible.
I didn't think it was terrible before, but I think it is noticeably better. I definitely agree with you. I think
Yeah.
it's a lot more responsive, and I find that across the board, right? Like we talked about, there's a modest power increase, right? And I think I definitely see that. Like, loads feel a little bit quicker, the OS feels a little snappier to me. Are you finding that? Like, I'm finding that the
I
whole thing
think
feels
that
a
is
little
the
quicker.
I think part of that is the higher refresh rate, that it feels a little bit snappier because of that.
That's a good
And I
point,
also
and
think some
yeah.
of that is the faster memory that they've now bumped up to 6,400 megatransfers. Um, they've said that it gives you a 30% faster wake from sleep for resuming games. And so I imagine that will also impact the booting of games and a bunch of other things in the kind of same capacity.
You know, it's like a small thing that I've noticed is like I'm gonna compare it just in front of me to prove that this is an anecdotal to myself. But I'm noticing that like I feel like when I'm blading through games in the library, like it's faster. Like the backgrounds keep up more. Like every once in a while. I don't know if that's a thing you've ever really like noticed.
So I think a lot of this changed in SteamOS 3.5 in one of the kind of later revisions. They actually changed kind of like the Steam client.
So like,
It switched from like that bluey color and now it's like a darker color. Um,
but you know what I'm
and I
talking about
think
here, where it's like, so I'm holding up the LCD right now,
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's like behind the game, right? There's the whatever the screen is, like the cover screen, they have that
yeah,
image
yeah.
behind it, and that as you blade through, okay, that's not working.
I've never had that be super
God
slow for
damn it! I'm
me.
trying to do this backwards, and it's really hard. There we go. You
Yeah,
see
I've
what I'm
never had.
saying, though? So it's not that I'm saying it's slow, right? But it's like I noticed just now when I bladed through it, I was going through it quickly, and on the 3rd or 4th game, it, like, stuttered for a second, right? Where it's like, "Oh," like, it took that half second for the back to change. And, like, I'm doing the same thing here, and it's keeping up, right? And it's like, minor, but, like, I feel like I'm noticing those little things where stuff that
Mm.
maybe used to take 5 seconds takes 4 seconds, right? And it's like, does the average person care
I
about
think
that?
that
Maybe not,
probably
but
is. I think, and I also don't think you'd notice if you didn't have the OLED model and the LCD model, or you hadn't used the LCD model for a long time, or if you were picking up an LCD model, you'd never notice
if I
these kind of
hadn't, like,
small
actively
things.
been playing a game
Yeah.
on it the day before even,
Yeah,
right? Like, I might
you
not.
probably wouldn't pick up on it, yeah. But there are a lot of other changes, like, I do think the 90 hertz is really meaningful. In games I've been playing, I play a lot of Deceiving, which is this, like, online shooter, and I have noticed that in there, like, even I've set it to 45, frames per second, but that is running at 90 hertz because it's half of the refresh rate of the display. It feels so much better. Just feels better than it did on the older display,
Yeah, I
which
agree.
is good.
I
Um,
noticed that with, like Persona, I was able to achieve like a really nice clean 60 FPS on the LCD model. And I was able to push the quality a little bit higher this time around and still maintain that same speed. I noticed that with Baldur's Gate 3, because unfortunately you weren't able to get it to
Baldur's
launch.
Gate 3 has had a massive update, and even on the
Massive.
LCD model, I was able to get it to run at 60 FPS with FSR2, and it looks fantastic
Yeah.
and plays fantastic.
So I
I don't
started
know what
it
magic Larian was doing in order to get that to run even better, but it's just phenomenal.
I started it at the same settings that I had talked about when I was playing it, originally on the LCD model. I think it was the one from IGN, and it's like a very like performance oriented base, like trying to stretch out battery life as much as possible. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me start there and see how it performs. Immediately, I noticed it ran better. It was tighter, cleaner, loads were faster, less stuttering in big environments, that kind of thing. And then I was like, all right, let me crank it up a little bit. Like, what if I make the models look better? What if I make this look better? And it was like I was able to just keep edging it higher and higher without seeing the performance dip in a meaningful way. And I'm impressed, right? This is one of those games where we talked about, right? Like, I think it was last week, you know, 8 to 7% performance increase doesn't sound like a lot, but when a game is just running, it's like just on the cusp, and you're like, hey, it
Yeah.
runs, it ain't pretty, but it runs well enough to play. That 8% pushes it over to being like, yeah, this looks good. It's like, and again, it's not perfect, but like, hey, and a nicer screen too.
Yeah,
Like,
I really wanna install The Last of Us again and see because that was a
especially
car
this,
crash,
yeah,
right?
when you played it, it was absolutely busted too. They've
Yeah.
done like how many patches since then? I'm
So
sure
I
it looks a
kinda
lot
wanna
better.
know Yeah, I kinda wanna know how that's running now. Obviously, you played Baldur's Gate, right? I couldn't get it to properly run because I don't know what's going on with my install, it keeps crashing. Did you notice the HDR, the difference with the HDR? Because obviously that is a game that supports it natively. I am probably gonna end up picking up Ori in the sale because it's like £8 and I really wanna play that game anyway. What do you think of HDR in general, really?
Um, I feel like I feel like it's kind of hard for me to appreciate it on this small of a screen, if I'm honest. Like I like and it's worth saying that like I'm probably not the best judge of it either, right? Like it's like HDR is one of those things where it's like when I bought my first TV that was capable of it, right? I was like, "Oh, okay. Noticeable difference. Like night and day, this looks better." But trying to articulate what about it looks better is I would not say my strong suit.
It's like the impact, but it's like you can see more shadows and you can see and it can go brighter, you can see more
Right.
highlights. So
So
so it'd be great if, say, in a game, like Resident Evil, for example, where there's a fire, it would be super bright, and I know in Baldur's Gate there's a lot of fire, I can imagine that that
so
looks really intense.
like I where I was driving, right, is the, area that I was last exploring, right, in Baldur's Gate is and I'll even pull it up so I can articulate it.
As long as it's
It
not a spoiler.
not a spoiler, I won't say anything. It's underground area, right? So it's dark, low light, but there are these, like, little blue, like, magical type lights that are around, right? So it's actually a really good environment to display what we're talking about because it's that high contrast. Um And like I said, I think on a smaller screen, it's like it's a little tough because I think this game and maybe this game is also not the best game to test that because it is that super swung out top-down camera. Like, I have the shadow to quality turned down to low. So, like, if the shadows are better, but the quality is not,
Yeah,
it's
you're not
like
gonna see them anyway, yeah.
yeah,
I
so I don't know that it's the best representation anyway. I think you would appreciate, the depth that's being offered there a lot more in something like Ori that is gonna look sharper on a smaller screen anyway, because
Well,
it
Ori's
is
great because
tighter.
the character is 1,000 nits. It, like, runs at that peak brightness, it's pure white, and so it's as bright as that screen can go, and then in the contrast with the dark environments, you really kinda see the difference.
So, like hold on, I'll let this load up, and then I'll see if I can show it to you. Because like, I think it's noticeable, but I think maybe Baldur's Gate 3 is not the best candidate
Yeah.
to judge.
I'm gonna experiment and play around with it, a bit more, but I'm a big fan of HDR. I think it has more impact than 4K did for me. When I first, like, saw 4K, I was
Sure.
like, "Oh, it's a slightly sharper 1080p, like, cool." With that HD, this is, like, a little bit better.
I'd
But
rather play
HDR was, like,
1080p with
with
HDR
HDR.
at 60
Yeah.
FPS than 4K without,
Yes,
like,
agreed, yeah.
totally, totally with you on
Um
that.
I think HDR is a real meaningful
Oh,
addition, and I'm looking forward to kind of trying it out. But if it wasn't here and it was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah,
you know what
so
I'm talking about?
those
All these
sparkly
little, like
elements I
yeah,
can
wispy
imagine
guys,
are really
and
bright. Yeah.
they really yeah, they're really bright, and, like, the contrast is very high, and I think that's the thing that I'm most struck by, right? Is, like, this corner here where there's, like, this, like, rock formation or whatever, right, is, like, very dark compared to these little kinda
Hmm.
wispy Navi looking thing, they're like, you know, it's just like that magical wisps, right? I don't know exactly what they are, but they're coming off some glowing plants. Pollen, I
Someone
guess, I don't know.
someone should leave a comment if they are an actual thing. Let us know what they are. Do they have a name? I'm sure they probably do, and we just don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm like a
yeah.
really, really like the most top level a D&D person can be. So, please correct my ignorance if there is a name.
But yeah, that screen, phenomenal. I think I'd be happy even if HDR wasn't here, right? That if it was just an OLED display and it was 60 hertz
Makes a
and it
difference.
wasn't larger, if it was literally the same screen, 60 frames per second, and it was still 7 inches instead of 7.4 inches, I wouldn't care. The fact that they've managed to do all of those things and we get HDR with it just makes it even better, and it's really, really nice.
That's what you and I talked about on the week when the thing was revealed, and we kinda discussed, like, gauging the interest. I think that is the name of the game here, and I made a comment earlier about how kind of each little thing has been iterated on and improved where it could be, and I think that's really why this device is an attractive upgrade, right? It is, it's not just the nicer screen, it's not just the improvement to the battery life or performance, or it's that you're getting all of that in this one package that really is like, okay, like, yeah, it's not a 2, but it is serving point 0.5 energy,
And it's all of that for $20 more than the previous, like, ranges, but
yeah.
you get double the capacity at those ranges as well. So, the middle model is now 512 gigs, and you can get up to a terabyte, which I think is just phenomenal value, and I really think all of these changes together, along with some of the smaller ones that I wanna talk about as well, um, I think just demonstrates to me how much Valve cares about this as a product and how much they want
Yes,
it to succeed,
I
and I
agree.
think it's because everyone on the team who probably came up with the idea themselves because of the way Valve's managed, that it's just like, if you have an idea and you wanna make a project, kind of just put a team together and make it work, that they're all really passionate about this product because they use it every single day, and they probably want a better version for themselves so they can play their favorite games with an OLED display, with a quieter fan, with all of these things. Um, and I don't think you get that from just a general PC manufacturer. I don't think you're
No,
gonna see someone like Lenovo be able to pull off a kind of
and
meaningful update in the same way.
I think just them having, like, a less traditional corporate environment, like, changes everything because it's like, I think you and I can speak to this, right? Obviously, we haven't we're not hardware creators, right? But I think like any creative person will tell you that the best environment to make cool stuff is to be in an environment with people that challenge you and in a place where you have some creative freedom and that you have this environment of like everybody's trying to one up each other, but not in a competitive way. In a I want to make I want to make you laugh, or I want to make you go, "Whoa, you figured out how to do like." And the idea that
It's
like
leave your
you
ego at the door and come to work
and
and work
just vibe,
with people that you know are
yeah,
incredible.
and support
And
whatever's
this
the coolest idea in the room, right? And it's like doesn't matter whose idea it was. Like let's just the people want custom boot ups. Let's get them out in 2 weeks. It's like that's awesome. Nintendo can't do that kind of shit, right? Like they can't pivot on a dime because here it's like it's like steering a cruise ship, right? It takes a minute to turn, right? And
Mhm.
Valve being that flatter structure and being able to be, leaner and more creative is, you know, I think why we get as much experimentation and movement with this device as we do, right? And it's what makes it so exciting to follow because, you know, they can do stuff like that where they're like, "Oh yeah, here's the OLED version. It's out in 2 weeks." And you're like, "What? Oh, okay. This changes the entire paradigm of the device. That's cool. Thanks for the heads
Yeah,
up."
and no one knew about it. It was completely secret. We were thinking all these FCC things were maybe gonna be like a new device. Maybe it's gonna be
You
this
think they were
home console, whatever.
looking at all the chuckleheads like us talking about that? They're like, they think we're making a console or a headset. Like, you idiots! It's another Steam Deck. Relax.
So a few of the other things that were really noticeable for me were the new haptics. I was not expecting them to feel as different as they do, and I can't really explain how they feel different. Just that they feel, I guess, a little less thuddy and a little sharper. It's really difficult to
Expound on
describe.
that. So let me ask some clarifying questions because I don't use haptics like that. So and you're like the haptics boy. Are you finding are you finding that it's like aiming is a little tighter? Is it
No,
like
so it's literally just the feedback. Open up both of your Steam Decks and run your finger across the trackpads, and you'll feel
oh,
how
you're talking
different
about
they
the
feel.
okay, okay. I thought you were talking about for some reason I'm thinking you're talking about the aiming. That
No,
you
no,
know
that's the gyro. No, the haptic feedback on those trackpads just
excuse me,
feels
folks.
so different to me.
I'm still high on turkey, I'm coming down from that tryptophan high.
Yeah, you got that moist maker in the fridge.
Exactly. I'm trying to open a game that will give me some feedback.
If you just go to the Steam page, go to, like, the bring up the keyboard on the search, you can run your fingers on both trackpads
Gotcha,
then,
gotcha,
and you'll feel how different they feel in comparison to the original deck. They just feel so much nicer. And they've done this really cool trick where, I think they did it on the original Steam Deck, where you
Steven,
pull the triggers and, it does a bit of haptics as well now, which is really cool.
Steven, Spider-Man Remastered, $30.
I know.
Whoa! Oh my god,
Yeah.
you're right. Holy crap. You're
They
so
feel
right.
very different, don't
Oh
they?
my
And do
god.
you know what I
It's
mean?
hard to
Like, they're just
articulate. You're
it's
right.
really difficult to articulate, but they just feel, like, snappier, sharper, something, like, I don't know, more precise in a way.
It
It's
w
weird.
it's yeah. I was not expecting it to be this hard to articulate. You know me, I'm not usually one to be lost for words. Um, it kinda reminds me of the level of detail that you have in the haptics on, like, the DualSense.
Yes, it
Like,
100% feels like that, and I
you
hope we get some of the stuff from those DualSense controllers in these haptics.
I don't know how you do that, but that'd be cool. I mean, it's I'll tell you what, it definitely like just the fine motor control of it is a lot better. Like I'm finding like the I don't know if you ever had this problem, but whenever I would use it to like navigate as
You sort of go all the way you gotta go all the way from the edge in order to
and then,
do it.
like yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
felt like you were using, like, a wheel ball mouse
Yeah,
almost, you know, where it's like you're
yeah.
kinda, like, flicking, and this, it's like, "Oh, no," like, I can actually use the very tip edge of it, and it's still getting the fine motor
Mhm.
control. It's like, yeah, that's a real improvement. I had
Yeah,
not
big
tested it.
improvement.
Yeah, wow, you're
The
not joking.
As soon as you go into desktop mode, you kinda really feel it, you can be a lot more precise, and the click on them just feels so nice, like, it feels like I'm pressing a button,
Yes.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
The sticks as well are improved, I think. I love the new caps, they feel grippier, I'm able to kinda keep my fingers in them a lot more than the old
Yeah,
ones
I
because of
agree.
the design.
They're a lot more comfortable, and again, it's a funny thing because, like, I thought the sticks on the other ones are fine, like, I never was like, "Oh, these sticks are bad," but now that I'm
I was getting
comparing
to a
them, I'm like,
point
"Ooh,
I was
they're a
getting
little
to a
flat."
point with those old sticks where I was just like, "I think I need to get some thumb grips on these because my finger kept slipping off them all the time."
I like the edge of them too, right? Like they have like that grooved, they're like the little
Yeah.
like raised rubber beads, you know? It's just a nice texture thing, you know, as a neurodivergent. I like the texture. I
Mhm.
like the
It's really
feeling
cool.
of the new one better than the old one too, and I don't know if that's just a
It
limited
could just be that the
edition.
plastic's newer, or you've got
Maybe,
different
yeah,
plastic, I guess,
yeah,
yeah.
'cause but, like, this one is slick. You know, it has that, like, matte quality to it, which
I
I think feels
noticed
nice.
that,
I don't
yeah.
think it's bad, but this one and again, this could just be the limited edition, it has, like, a rougher
No,
plastic
I
edge,
noticed the same thing on mine, but I
you know?
wasn't sure if it was because my Steam Deck's so old
I don't think it
that,
is. It reminds me of the reaction that we had to the new Xbox controller when it first dropped. We were like, "Oh, it has that."
it's a little bit textured, yeah.
Yeah, and it just it's nice, you know? There's something about it.
It's if you get sweaty palms while you're gaming, these are 2 things that are big, right? You got
It's me.
texture on the yeah, you got texture on the device and those sticks, your thumbs stay seated in them, which they
Totally.
didn't do for me before. A couple of other things, smaller things, the shoulder buttons, phenomenal now. You can actually press them while you're holding the sticks. They're clickier, they're snappier. They don't pivot now. They are all across the top. You can press in any position. Whereas on the old one, they definitely felt different. And it's much nicer. I can actually use them. Before every game that used shoulder buttons, I would map them to the back buttons because my hands are
Huh.
tiny and I could not reach them.
They really do have, the click's a lot better. The
Yeah,
other ones are they feel a little,
it's a bit muted. It's a bit like,
yeah, like, what's the word I'm like, spongy in
yeah,
comparison,
and
you
not
know?
as spongy as the Steam and the quick access buttons on the old model compared to
No,
the
no,
new
no.
one. Those buttons are like the new Steam and quick access buttons, which I know they improved on the original Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But the
Those definitely
buttons
have
in
that feel,
mine, oh
yeah.
my god, they're
Mine's
awful on the
yeah,
original Steam Deck.
I always thought that those were like yeah, it's like, "Ugh." It's like, "Did I even push that in?" It's like, "Boop, boop."
Yeah.
Little gummy, little
Um
gummy.
the speakers, they definitely seem nicer to my ears.
Dude, that is you wanna talk about shit I noticed. Wow.
Yeah.
Right out the pop right out the box. I literally was like, "Sarah, listen to this." And I cranked up the volume. I was like, "Look, it's like this bassier, it's louder for sure." But yeah, it's just like I think I noticed a lot of times when I would max out the volume on the deck, it wouldn't clip, but it would have this sense of like
It
the
didn't have much depth, it was flat.
The dynamic range of it was very
Yeah.
flat. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a good way to put it. And now I feel like the nuance is there more, right? Like in a scene where if I cranked it up, I can hear the distinction between there's like I'm in Baldur's Gate, right? There's music in the background, there's a character talking, there's a fire burning, and I can hear all of them and they're more clear and distinct, right? I would
Mhm.
find if I was playing a game that had a story or like music that I actually wanted to listen to or something like that, I would have to pop in headphones because just the
Yeah.
bass experience was just not quite there for me. These I think are way, way better and like are you're not losing um out on that nuance, right? Which is, you know, video game music is its own thing, right? And it's like if you're playing a game with a great soundtrack, you want to be appreciating it. And I think you're definitely getting a much, much better quality out of these speakers.
Agreed. I mean, I think the old speakers are fine. I think these ones are better. It's again another small improvement I'm happy with. Another improvement related to sound, Bluetooth 5.3 support, which adds a bunch of things, right?
I
But
got
for the
Bluetooth
big one,
headphones now. I could do that.
yeah. And the big thing for me is it adds support for aptX low latency codec, which means that any latency you did have between the kind of the screen and what was
Yep,
going on there and the sound hitting your ears is greatly reduced. And thankfully, my Bose headphones support it, so I can actually take advantage of it, which I was happy about.
love that.
Definitely, you can definitely tell.
How you getting on
And
with
another,
the fan noise while we're
yeah,
talking
that is
about
a
sound?
phenomenal improvement. So I originally had the whiny, horrible, noisy Delta fan. I
Yeah,
replaced that with the good fan this year, and that was a real marked improvement for me. I was really happy with that change, and it was a lot quieter and nicer on my ears. This one, the games I've been playing, the fan doesn't even sound like it's on or moving. It's, like, completely silent, and these are the same games that I was playing on my old deck where the fan would go bananas, and it would just be roaring and pumping out air. On this, it's just so much quieter. I don't know about you, but I'm very happy. Like, that was one of the things I had a big issue with the Steam Deck was that it's close to my face because I'm holding it, and it's really loud.
so, yeah, I think for me, the time I would be most bothered by it because I was one of the people that was lucky enough that I have a early deck, but I was one of the ones after they changed the fan out, so I never dealt with, like, the super whiny one. So it was never, like, something that I was, like, sitting here being like, "Ah, the fan is bugging me," right? But I think it did contribute to that sound issue that I was discussing, right? Where it's like, I feel like I can't really pick sounds out. It feels like they're all maybe bleeding together a little bit. And I think part of that is that if you're playing a remotely intense game, you got a white noise machine on 2 inches from your face too, right? I did notice when I booted up like Baldur's Gate, right? A more intense game, the fan kicks on, right? I'm hearing it. But you know, I don't know enough about how fans work, but what I am imagining is that because it's a more efficient fan, it's not having to work as hard to cool the same
That's
amount.
correct, yeah.
So I
It's a
hear
larger fan. That's the big
okay,
change, is it's bigger, so the bigger the fan,
and
the
there's less.
slower it can run
Well, and
because it
also
doesn't need to pump as much air. So
right.
that was the problem with the PS4, tiny fan. You look at the PS5, it's
Yeah,
massive, so that
some
fan can
space.
run slower and pump out the same amount of air.
So and that's what I noticed, right? Where, like, I heard it kick on, but whereas, like, if I used to turn it on and, like, walk across the room, I could hear it, working. It's like, okay, it's a solid, like, it's in a much lower register because it's not working as hard. So it feels more like a brown noise than a white noise, which
Yeah.
I do think is a
It's
big
I
difference.
I I think there's a change in the frequency or something as well. It's more for me like a roar now. It's like a rather than like a whiny fan now, it very much just sounds like it's pumping air out. And I like it. I mean, there's always going to be fan noise with these bigger games, but I try and limit it. I'll make the trade-off that I will happily take the game looking a little bit worse, running a little bit worse if I don't have to hear as bad a fan noise.
I think the other thing I'm noticing now that we're like that you're asking me about it, I think the times that I notice the fan kicking on is when it's booting the game, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
working
which is correct, right? So
working the
after
hardest.
that, then after that, it's like it's fine. Like
Like right
I've not
now, like
noticed. Yeah,
let's do a little experiment here. I'm gonna hold it up to the microphone. Can you hear this?
I can't, but
I
hopefully the
can a little
listeners.
bit. I think it's probably gonna come through for the folks, but it's not very loud. It's like
Oh,
you're getting that like it's like, okay, yeah,
yeah, yeah. It really is so much quieter, which is great. That was one of the big things that they
pretty
spoke
easy.
about. The other big change is battery life, and I don't know if you've had enough time with it to notice this.
So I haven't. I don't think I've had enough to like comment on how it's impacted like my habits. But what I will say that I've noticed, right, is I said I've had kind of two separate sittings with it where I've been able to sit down and play with it. Um, I've only fully charged it once, right, and I said as I've said I've played for a few hours off and on. I'm still more than halfway through that charge. So like, anecdotally, it seems quite a bit better. I would say on my LCD, it would probably be more than 50% drained at this point, right?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely would. And I mean, for me, like we did the episode where I spoke about the undervolting, right?
Uh-huh.
And Deceive Inc. went from an hour 37 up to an hour 54 when I did the undervolt.
Right.
And I was happy with an hour 54. I thought it was great. I'm now getting 3 hours and 45 minutes out of that game, which is just
Whoa.
bananas. And
Whoa.
I am like, oh my God, this is actually coming up in parallel with what I would expect from like a Switch.
What was the
Give me.
original? It was originally an hour and a half?
An hour 37 was the original
Wow,
one.
yeah, so double the time. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really great. And obviously, depending on the game you play, you could expect to get more time or less time. Like, if you play something like Stardew Valley, you could be playing this thing for like 12 hours. Playing something like Baldur's Gate, you're probably going to get like two plus hours out of it now, which is really nice. Like,
Yeah.
it's an actually, that's a decent play session. You
Yeah,
could play that on like that's a flight for a lot of people,
sure, sure.
and you can then just play your game, not have to worry about the battery, you get to where you wanna be, and then you kinda just plug it in again, and it charges faster as well. Like, it definitely does charge faster. I've
Yes. I
tested it
noticed
and
that.
I've checked it, and it really does.
The time from, like, when I got it out of the box, right, and it was off, um, to go from 0 to full was, like, nothing.
It's great. Like, I'm really happy with the battery life, and obviously that comes from a bunch of things like the screen, but also the better APU and also the fact that they've put, like, better memory management and stuff, like there's a lot of things there. I do wanna do some more tests. That might be something that would be worth you experimenting with is figuring and, like, testing games, opening the same game on both the LCD model and letting it run for, like, 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then doing the same thing on the OLED model and seeing
Seeing, like,
what
how
it
much
would
it
get.
drains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
I've not
I would
even
love
done
to
an undervolt.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. Sorry, make your point again because I think the crosstalk was probably
Yeah,
tough.
yeah, no. I've not even done an undervolt on this yet, and I'm so excited to see what that's gonna do, when I
Oh
do an
my god.
undervolt because
You might get
if
three and
I
a
went
half hours out of that game, right?
yeah,
Oh
if
my
it
gosh.
like because I got another half hour when I did the undervolt, if I can get, like even if it's, like, another 20 minutes or another 30 minutes, like, that pushes me up to almost 4 hours of battery playing the game I wanna play, which is great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really good. Um, so, sorry, we'll just I'm sorry.
We were talking about the battery, right? You're gonna make a video, what you saying?
Thank you.
Between, like,
Yeah,
the
I lost
comparison?
my train of thought there. I was like going to look at the notes, and I was like, the thing I was going to say is not in the notes. I think it would be interesting to like let them both totally die and then plug them in and like just record them charge and like see which one
Yeah,
charges up quicker
yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah, like just to see.
There's a lot of things that I wanna check, so, um aside from the limited edition stuff, which I want you to talk about in a minute,
Oh, you know what?
how
Before
you
we do that, Steve, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of November. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Pilkey, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to go check out those sister shows, if you want to show your support just like they did and get a bunch of cool perks and goodies, or if you just want to keep the conversation rolling between episodes, you can head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places we are all across the web and all the ways that you can become a part of the Flip Screen Games community. However you choose to tune in or get involved, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Steam Deck podcast. We're back, Steve. Go ahead.
So before we move on to how you feel about the special edition model, the limited edition model, what's your kind of view on the OLED overall? You happy with your purchase? Would you recommend this for anyone to buy, or do you think if you've got an LCD model and you can't quite afford this at the moment, you're not really kind of missing out? You're not kind of you've still got a good Steam Deck experience.
I think it can be both things a little bit, right? I think the way that I generally feel, and I think that this is kind of a blanket statement for how I feel about most of these like midpoint refreshes for a device like this. I think if you are somebody like friend of the show, Left Eye Lazy, right, who has wanted a Steam Deck for a long time and not bought, guess what, folks? You won the lottery, right? You did it. You waited out. You're gonna get the best device available for that same low price. Good for you, buddy. You won. I think if you are a person who is an early adopter and you have your LCD Steam Deck and you are happy with it, yeah, you're good, right? Like that is a great device. You and I are both big fans of it. We've used it for over a year and had great time with it. Neither of us regret that purchase and the time we've spent with it. And I think if I had never gotten an upgrade or if I didn't have the money to warrant an upgrade, I'd still be enjoying my Steam Deck, right? Same thing I'd say to somebody who bought a launch Nintendo Switch. Do you need to upgrade? No, not at all. But I think if you're looking to upgrade,
I actually think it's a more meaningful upgrade than the OLED
that's
though,
where I was
because
about to drive. That's where I was about to
yeah,
drive. I'm with you, right? If you want to upgrade, if you're in the mood for a new device, if you have the money, if you're able to maybe do what Steve did and sell yours and then offset the cost or whatever, yeah, man, do it. Right? It's a worthwhile upgrade for sure, but don't break the bank. Right? Don't run up a huge credit card balance on this guy and pay a bunch of interest on it. It's not like the end all be all next coming of the Steam Deck, but as I said at the top, I think it's extremely hard to argue that it is not a better device in every measurable way.
I would 100% agree with that. I think, if screens especially are something that really irk you and you're like a screen enthusiast, like I think we probably both are, I think this is probably something worth looking into. Even if you can't get it now with the kind of holiday period coming up, I think it's probably worth jumping on earlier next year. Because I don't think a Steam Deck 2 is coming next year, and I think it probably is something
I
worth
think
picking
it's
up.
I mean, we talked about that report, right? I think it's a minimum of 2 years away. I think it's probably more than likely 3 years away, right? So, I think if you buy this upgrade right now, you're gonna get a lot of use out of it, and it's a quality of life upgrade that you will appreciate over the course of its life cycle. But I think if you are, a couple of people on our Discord, a couple of people in the comments have been like, "I just got one," like, "Damn, like, should I upgrade?" I think that that's a decision you've gotta make uh, for yourself based on your wallet and how much the shiny new toy syndrome matters for you. Because if it's a thing where you're gonna like buy it because you have FOMO and then be like, yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah, I could see you maybe being like, maybe I didn't need to do this, right? But I think if you're the type of person that really cares about that stuff, you got the money to play with, yeah, man, it's you'll be happy you got the upgrade, I think.
Mhm. Or if this is like your primary source of entertainment, this is my main device for gaming at this point, and I wanna be able to experience things in the best way possible, and a lot of people were like, "Why would I need to get a Series X or a PS5 at launch? There's no games there." It's the quality of life improvements that those devices brought in. I think you get a similar kind of experience here with it's just
Totally.
everything's just a little bit nicer across the board, but yeah.
And again, right, like with the performance stuff, I that stuff does make a difference, right? Like if you are somebody that likes to use your deck for AAA gaming, you're gonna notice an 8% increase in your games, right? You're gonna notice the ability to have the better refresh rate and all those things that we talked about. And again, if you're somebody who commutes, right? If you're somebody that travels a lot and this is a device you're bringing on the road with you, that battery life is going to make a big difference, right? So I think do I think it's a worthwhile upgrade? Yes. Do I think it's something I would recommend to like every single LCD owner? I think your mileage may vary how worth the upgrade it is. Because I think there are a lot of folks, right, who have less expendable income than we do, right? And that $700 would be far better spent during the Steam sale to buy games, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what's important is the games. So I think don't break the bank to upgrade, but yeah, if you can, man, hey, buy yourself a nice little Christmas present.
Yeah. So, limited edition. You were able to pick one up
I
eventually,
was
right?
able to pick one up, Steve. You saw it live on the air. I was able to
I
pick one
did.
up.
But, some people aren't watching on YouTube. So,
Sure. But they heard
um,
me. They heard me freak out about it, right?
you happy with your decision? You happy with your purchase and you got the limited edition?
Yeah. So for what it's worth, I've also got a little unboxing video that I did playing over on the let me see if I can increase the speed here, huh? Nah, whatever. That's fine. I'll leave it. Um So yeah, I got a little unboxing video that I'm showing for the folks on YouTube, and there's going to be a short version of it up on the YouTube channel, TikTok Reels, all that stuff. So if you want to see me unbox the limited edition and check out one comes in the package for yourself, definitely go check that out. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased because, if you listen to last week's show, I was, complaining that I didn't get it and I was, all salty about it. And, I had a moment when my pre order didn't go through originally where I was like, I give up, forget it. I'll save the money. I don't need it, whatever. And I was really disappointed. I had this moment afterwards where I'm like, man, like, we do the podcast. Like, I want this specific one. I want the original limited edition. I want to have it up on the wall someday, right? Like when we get the deck two, when we retire our OG models. Like, this is a piece of history of this device I want to be a part of, right? So I was very pleased to ultimately be able to get my hands on it. And I mean, like the style really is my aesthetic, right? Like it's got
Yeah.
yeah, man. Like I love orange. Orange is one of my favorite colors,
Very,
especially
very Half-Life. Very Half-Life.
totally. Especially for like an accent color, right? Like I
Yeah.
really like orange and like hotter colors like that on tech. And the translucent,
Gorgeous.
like
Absolutely
back in
gorgeous. The
front.
smoky color, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about me doing a shell swap to achieve this look. They made it only with hot orange accents. I really don't think I could ask for much more, unless they had made like a vaporwave one or
I
something.
know. See, I really hope they do a magenta one next because I
Yeah,
absolutely love, like, hot pink, and I think it would look so nice, but
yeah.
I I I know this also comes with a couple of other things, right? Yes, it's got the orange thing, but you also get, like, a limited, like, boot screen that only you guys that bought the a limited edition get, and you get a special case. Because I've got the basic case
So
that,
what? Talk to me about the boot
every other
screen. Is
Steam
your
Deck
boot
got.
screen just regular?
My boot screen is the old boot screen, but with an orange dot instead of a blue one.
That's what mine is.
So you need to go then, Pete,
I gotta
to
claim it.
click on you gotta click on your face in the top right corner, and you gotta claim your rewards, and you will be able to then install the OLED, boot screen, which
I,
only you will get access to.
wow,
Um,
well, that's cool.
but you obviously get
Um,
that, and then you also get a special case because if you get the 512 model, you get this cool, like, tear apart case, but then the limited edition one also comes with, like, the different colors and, like, the print inside, which is cool.
it's really
Are you
cool.
liking it?
I really like it. Yeah, and I wasn't aware that it had the print in until I opened it. I was like, wow, like That's pretty cool.
Oh,
It's
nice,
got the
yeah.
whole breakdown of, like, the innards of the deck, right? And
Yeah.
again, you got this nice, like, orange, matching orange zipper and everything, which I really like. Something I think is really cool that I highlighted in my unboxing is, you know how there's, like, that thing on the back of the box, uh, or the back of the case, I should say, where you have, that little kinda, like, just, like, indent.
The elastic. Yeah, the elastic over the indent, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if this was in yours, but there's a little pouch that comes with it
No,
now.
you got that as part of the 512 model on the LCD, you get a little pouch, and you get that on the 1 terabyte model and the limited
Okay.
edition
So,
on the
yeah,
new
so,
one.
I mean, I obviously have the 1 terabyte limited, and I got it right here. You've already seen it up on screen for the full screen for the YouTube. And it also came with this cool white chamois that, that was in the thing as well, which I thought was pretty neat. Um, Love a good chamois. It's got the deck logo on it, which I like. The charger has the deck logo on it too, which I thought
It
was pretty
does,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
I
Which
like I
and
like
it's a lot
It
longer, that
is.
cable.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, which is nice. I mean, the original was already pretty long, so, I mean, any extra real estate there is appreciated. Makes that leash a little less short. But, I like the package overall, right? I like that there's, like, the more branding, they're playing with the logo, but the logo's identifiable enough now that you wanna, include it a little bit more. But what I was saying, in the unboxing, I talked about how I think this little pouch is actually really cool because, the indent on the back of this guy, right, that everybody knows is there. I don't know about you, I really never used it. I have put a charger in it once or twice or something like that. I remember somebody suggested that in the Discord or something. Um, and I didn't like it because it's just hanging loose there. It doesn't feel very secure. It feels very like,
Mhm.
maybe if I got it in another backpack, it's keeping it more organized than if it's all just loose. But it's like, what are we doing here? If I'm just carrying this around, I don't want like something I care about just in a
It
flat.
just drops on the floor, yeah.
Yeah. But this guy, I like this because it's got a little cinch. It's like a glasses case, right? I'm like, you could easily throw a pair of wireless headphones in this guy. You could throw an external battery. You could throw maybe you got a second SD card, right? I know some people hot swap their library around, stuff like that. I think you could easily put any of that stuff in here. It's got the nice little cinch on it, right? Like if as if it were like a bag, glasses case, and you get it nice and closed up at the top there. So even if it is kinda in that back compartment, I think if it's full, it's probably not falling out, and if it does, hey, it's in a nice spongy soft case. That's totally legit. So I think that's a nice and again, you get the little deck logo on here too. It's cool. It's good. It's a good addition, right? You're getting some
It's cool,
mileage out of
yeah.
that bad boy, I think.
Yeah. I think that I gotta say, I think the lineup now is significantly better than the old lineup. The fact that the minimum entry now is 256 gigabytes is just fantastic. Yeah, you
Get
get the
that
LCD
64
screen for
gigabyte
that.
out of there. Come on, that's
G
not
Yeah,
enough.
it's gone,
That's not
which is
enough.
great, right?
Yeah.
But we spoke a lot before about how
Sorry. One
what's
more
the
thing.
point in yeah,
Sorry,
carry on.
One more thing, because we're gonna get away from the case here. Uh, Yours has the Velcro too, right?
No, so the only the 1 terabyte model gets those.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. That's another.
Yeah. Well, you
That's
can
another
tear
big
the
one.
inside out of that one, so you
You
can pull
can.
it out.
It's
Yeah.
removable, which is cool. But with the Velcro, I like this a lot because if you're in like a quick moment and you got to just shut it again and you can't zip it up, man, that boy's secure. And even if it is zipped, this guy is like, if you're not like holding it, it's going right back. So it's like
Mhm.
it's a lot more secure than the original one. And the original one's a great case. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, oh, that's a nice little extra level of security there. I appreciate it. It's premium.
One thing I do miss is the little pull tab that's inside. They got rid of it this generation.
Yeah, thought that was interesting because I think to
I
me,
liked that. I used to pull it out with that all the time.
I would too. I would too. Which I did like. I wonder if that would get in the way of this guy.
Maybe, but it's gone on my case too.
It's weird. Yeah.
And I would
Maybe
presume
people didn't like it
my case is probably the same as the old case, and they just changed the logo to orange.
and took the proof out.
Like, that's literally the only difference on it.
Weird that
Uh,
it's not orange on this guy. It's like a piece of rubber.
mine's a piece of rubber, but it's orange. It's
I
like
want
a
my I would want
it's the color Steam
I'd
Deck
rather
logo.
mine be orange.
Yeah, it looks really
The
cool in orange.
inside's
I like
funky,
it.
that's cool. I like that. I don't
Yeah.
give me the orange. I like the
I
orange.
think
That's why I
on
bought
the
it.
normal 1 terabyte model, you get it as orange, but then, yeah, on the limited, it's the darker color. Um,
Okay.
but I gotta say the lineup's so much better.
Yeah.
We used to say the difference between 256 and 512 was just not enough to justify that jump. It's now a £90 difference. I don't know, I think it's $100 difference. Might be a little bit more. I think it's a definite it's definitely worth the jump. You go from 512 gigabytes to a terabyte, but then you also get that, like, fancy case. It's like, if you were gonna get a different case and you were gonna upgrade the SSD at some point, or you were gonna buy a 512 gigabyte micro SD card anyway, it kinda begins to make sense to spend the 90 quid to upgrade to 1 terabyte rather than the 512.
It's like, why
And
wouldn't you, right? Like,
yeah.
for that much of an increase, right? It just seems worth it. I think you can make a much better case for it now than you used to be able to.
Yeah, before it was, "Oh, I get a nicer carrying case," and by nicer, the only difference was it had, like, a color icon, and it came with the pouch, and you get the etched glass display. And obviously, the etched glass display is personal preference. Some people I've seen don't like it. You seem to really like it. But I think the lineup just looks phenomenal now. The entry price point of 349 all the way up to kind of the £569. I think it's a great price across the board.
Yeah, I agree. Very attractive. I think it's a really nice upgrade, and again, right? I think it's for new users, it's a really attractive set of offerings, right? And for the what used to be, you know, the de facto choice, I think, for the LCD model to become now the budget entry point is awesome, right? Because that's an incredible device that you're getting at a great deal.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really really happy with my purchase. I knew I would like it, but I love this thing, and
Yeah,
I'm really happy.
it's sick. I'm glad I bit for sure.
Hmm.
So before we get out of here, we got a couple questions to answer. You want to jump into one of them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the two questions we got are related to the same thing. So, Shidafoo said that they want us to focus on reports of dead pixels and poor subpixel thingy, which causes red and green outlines, and why this means LED decks remain superior and no one should feel bad for upgrading.
We're
Um,
not upgrading.
yeah, for not upgrading, sorry. So I did notice this, and so did Team Linux 01 on the Discord, and posted a screenshot. And I confirmed with them that it is for RGB striping, and Team Linux said, I think it's very subtle, but for some reason my brain notices these things. I don't know if you noticed it. It's definitely stood out for me that you could see red and green fringing on white text on the black background.
Huh.
Um,
No, I haven't seen that. Let
but
me see if I can replicate it.
you kind of just ignore it after a while. It just disappears, and when you're playing a game, you don't notice at all. And I think this is one of those things that people are going to make a big deal out of, and it's going to be kind of a non-issue. Um, it's just something that you get with OLED displays. Pete's currently looking at
Yeah,
the
I'm
web
not
text to
I
see if he
don't
can see it.
like I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like I know what you're describing. I've seen it on an OLED screen before. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I'm thinking, like maybe if I get really, really close, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see it.
yeah. You've got to really see it. It's got to be in the specific
Yeah,
scenario, but like you just don't notice. I really don't think. Excuse me. I really don't think this is an issue at all. It's kind of like a
yeah.
it's just something that people will notice, but
Fair
you kind
enough.
of just
Well,
you move on from it.
whatever you're gonna tell yourself, Shitty Foof. If that's what you need to tell yourself to justify not upgrading, I think that's okay.
I
I
have
support
seen
that.
some I've seen reports of dead pixels, but, that's part of the course with any device. There's like a limited number of dead pixels that manufacturers deem acceptable, and if you don't deem that acceptable, you can return the device and get a different one. They're still in stock. They're probably gonna still continue to be in stock, and, Valve are pretty good. Valve support are pretty good, so if you do get a device with dead pixels, just send it back and get another one.
It should be fine. All right. Any closing thoughts on this guy? I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about it, in the weeks to come as this becomes our daily use machine and we get a little more used to it. Like, I know I'm excited to try out some of the new features, like turning it on with the Bluetooth controller from across the room, and some of the
Yeah, I've
other.
not had a chance to try that yet. Yeah.
There's a couple things
Uh,
like that I just haven't tried yet, but
yeah,
we
I
got
wanna
time.
experiment more with, like, HDR. I wanna play around with, like, the Bluetooth stuff like you said, and, I'm so excited to play games on the thing, and,
Yeah.
I think that's really what you want from a device like this.
I think that's a good place to end it for today. Thank you guys for joining us here on another episode of the Steam Deck podcast. If you bought a OLED Steam Deck, write in and let us know. We've got the Discord, of course, where in the Steam Deck channel, everybody's been chatting about their new purchases and geeking out about them. So if you have an OLED Steam Deck and you need some folks to chat about with it, make sure you come and join us. Or if you want to get your stories, experiences, thoughts, questions read on the air, guess what? There's a bunch of ways you can do that. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website. You'll find links at the email address, our Patreon, our Discord, whether you want to get involved by writing into the show, joining the community to keep the conversation rolling, or if you want to go above and beyond and show your support and back the show as a Patreon supporter and get all kinds of cool perks and goodies, as well as hours of exclusive content and some cool new stuff that we're going to be debuting in January and beyond. Make sure you go head over to flipscreen.games. However, you choose to get involved or show your support for the show. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Steam Deck podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.